This is a special report from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the trial of Scot Peterson, the Parkland School resource officer. Let's go to the courtroom for today's segment number 4.
I don't know all the room numbers to all the buildings and stuff like that.
As far as the doors on the east side of the 1200 building, do you remember what they looked like?
Yes.
Did the doors on the east side of the 1200 building have slats that you were able to see through, glass panes?
Yes, there is.
And do you recall being able to see through those glass panes on the doors?
I remember there's glass panes there, but I opened the doors right away, and then I was looking right inside and stepped inside.
Describe for the members of the jury what was immediately visible to anyone who would have taken the time to just open the doors to the east side of the 1200 building. What was right in front of you?
So right when I opened the doors, it was smoky from gunpowder, I guess. You could smell it as well. And probably about 25 feet in front of me, there was a couple of bodies right on the floor in clear sight.
Once you open the doors, explain what you're doing. How are you assessing what to do next?
So as I'm holding the door and I'm keeping an eye on the stairway and the hallway, I can't tell you exactly how quick or how many minutes it was. Some of the officers brought out a female that had some wounds to her chest and her abdomen, having some gunshot wounds. So at that point, a golf cart came up somehow, and we're bringing the girl to the golf cart. And then at that point, one of the police officers was going to ride with the wounded person. And I said, no, wait, stop. Let the medic continue to tender care to the person. And we need the officers here. We need whatever help we can have here. So then the medic and somebody else, I don't know who was driving the golf cart, drove off with the girl to bring them to medical help.
In that moment, why was it important to have all officers available?
We still weren't sure if the shooter was on scene or not, and we needed to start searching and checking the area for him.
Now, while this is all happening, do you notice a deputy, Scot Peterson, at some point?
At some point, yes.
Explain for the members of the jury what happens.
So as I was holding my position, I see somebody on the sidewalk over there, and I see someone pacing back and forth and looking down saying, oh my gosh, oh my God, oh my gosh. At that point, I knew we needed help. We didn't need somebody pacing back and forth. And I looked and I said, who are you? And he said, I'm the SRO. And I said, what the fuck are you doing out there? You should be inside.
When you said this to him, what did he do?
He continued to just, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, and looking down.
Now, Lieutenant, in that moment, were you also overwhelmed by the situation?
I think it's a stressful time for everybody in that situation, but it's a bad day to be a police officer. You go and do your job. You got to put things aside and you do what you have to do.
In that moment, based on your observations, just of the officers that are near you, also working that 1200 building, did the other officers also appear to be under the stress of the events?
I'm sure everybody was under stress, but there was a time for action, and that was the time.
And once you have this verbal interaction with Deputy Peterson, what happens next?
I don't know the exact time frame, but I think I was there a lot longer than what I initially thought, but in that time, I had already asked, I think, the captain. I said, hey, I'm going to call our SWAT team as well. So I know I made a phone call while I was holding the situation, made a phone call to call our SWAT commander at the time and tell him they actually were in training that day. So I said, bring the team, everybody, we need everybody we can. We need help. So I made a phone call to them, and I believe I might have texted my son once or twice in that time to ask what room he was in.
And what did your son respond to you?
Yes, he responded, I'm in room 1230.
When you got that text back from your son, did it bring you some relief?
Well, I knew he was okay at that point.
And when you were told room 1230, did that mean anything to you? Did you know where that room was?
I had no idea where the room was, no.
What did you do?
So I asked the SRO, Scot Peterson, I asked him, what floor is 1230 on? And he looked at me and he says, it's on the 3rd floor. So I text my son, are you on the third floor? He goes, I'm on the second floor, Dad.
So then what do you do with that information?
So I didn't know who might be wrong or right, but moments later, my son had texted me, a police officer walked by the door. So I knew that since a police officer walked by the door, then I knew he was going to be fine. And he was safe at the time.
Once your son lets you know that there's a police officer there, while that happens, are you still in your position in the stairwell?
Yes.
Can you explain for the jury what it is specifically that you're doing in the stairwell? What does it mean to maintain a position?
So I'm making sure that if anybody not in a uniform at that point comes down, that I'm ready to handle the situation. I'm looking down the entire hallway because I could see from east to west to the exit doors out there. So I'm maintaining the visual on that and at the stairwell at the same time. To make sure nobody comes out that could possibly be the shooter.
Lieutenant, you're with Sunrise. The other officers are with DSO. Some there were from Coral Springs. How were you able to communicate with each other?
We were talking to each other, just talking.
Were you able to formulate a plan and work all together?
Yeah, yes, I mean, it was fluid because when we were right outside before it all started, it was, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this. And then as like injured people were coming out, we had to adjust, when the one person came out. But until there was some other kind of assignment, we did what we were doing.
While you were all doing your jobs, was Deputy Peterson assisting?
No.
What happens next?
I don't know exactly the time frame. I held the door for a while. I knew that our SWAT team was en route, and moments later, I don't know how long, as more officers started coming because they were coming from everywhere, my son had texted me that we're being escorted out of the building.
Did your son end up exiting the building through the east side or through the west, if you recall?
The west side.
How did you come to find out that your son had exited the building?
I don't know how many minutes later it was, but he texted me, I'm out of the building.
Once your son exited the building, what did you do?
It was probably it probably could be another 10 minutes. Once a large amount of officers started to get there, I don't know how many, but there was a large number of officers. I told one of them, hey, relieve me. I'm going to go I'm going to go reunite with my son. So I think maybe one of the SWAT teams already there, and they were checking. There must have been another 50 or 100 police officers at the time. So at that time, I felt we had the situation under control. We were no longer hearing gunshots, and the building had pretty much been checked, and we knew that he was not there. So I asked one of the officers, could you relieve me? And they relieved me, and then I went and met up with my son.
From the moment that you parked your car and arrived on scene to the moment that you left that day, did you ever hear any gunshots?
I did not hear any gunshots.
Do you know how much time had elapsed by the time you arrived on campus from when the shooter had already left the building?
I do not know.
Lieutenant, when you refer to the SRO, Scot Peterson, do you see him in the courtroom today, the man that you had the verbal interaction with?
I do.
Can you please identify him by the color of his tie?
I can't see his tie. Red.
Your Honor, let the record reflect the witness's identification.
Yeah, the record shall so reflect. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. I have no further questions.
Okay, cross-examination, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant.
Hello.
If I heard you correctly, you have been a law enforcement officer for 30 years.
I'm in my 29th year now.
City of Sunrise.
Correct.
And you are a lieutenant in special operations, correct?
Yes.
And back on February 14, 2018, you were also in the same division, the special operations unit, correct?
Yes.
And your rank was lieutenant back then, correct?
That is correct.
My understanding is that you hear sirens and then a fellow police officer says that there's an active shooter at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, correct?
Yes.
And this had an extraordinary impact on you, I can imagine, because you obviously had a son there, correct?
Yes.
And do you know the exact time that you arrive on campus?
I don't know the exact time. It was right after my friend called me, I sped to there, so I don't know.
I mean, Cruz was definitely gone by then, correct?
We weren't sure if he was gone by then.
I understand, but you later learned that the shooter was already gone, but you just didn't know it, correct?
Yes, he was gone by the time I got there.
All right.
From later learning that.
Got it. And when you arrive, you see a number of officers, and they're in a position of cover, are they not?
Well, at the gate, the two were just standing at a gate. There's not much cover at the gate.
Okay,
But the one by the tree, he was behind a tree.
okay. And the one by the tree, you saw him taking a position of cover behind the tree, correct?
I did.
And they didn't enter the 1200 building, correct?
I saw them there. I don't know what they did before or after.
You don't know what their real-time intelligence was, correct?
I don't know what their intelligence was now.
You don't know what was said to them on their BSO radios prior to you arriving, correct?
I don't.
But they did indicate to you, don't go in there because they were concerned about sniper firing, correct?
I don't know about sniper fire. It was an active shooter.
Okay. Well, they directed you towards the building and they indicated to you he's shooting the windows out. Remember them saying that to you?
You can shoot windows out without being a sniper. You could shoot them from a hallway.
Gotcha. But they made it clear that the person or persons in the building could potentially be shooting out of the windows, correct?
They made it clear windows were shot out.
Okay. And they felt that it was of such concern to them that they even warned you about it, correct?
They addressed their concerns.
And you see additional officers not going into the 1200 building, taking positions of cover, correct?
I didn't see additional ones. I saw the two at the gate, the ones at the tree. When I ran up to the rest of them, we were going in that building.
Gotcha. You did see Coral Springs Officer Burton standing there, correct?
I don't know their names. I know there was a captain there, and there was probably 4 of us that were there at least.
Do you remember seeing Officer Best also standing there and not going in?
I don't remember names.
Did you expect that the radios were patched between BSO and Coral Springs when you arrived?
I didn't expect anything.
There was a captain giving out orders, correct?
The captain formulating a plan, yes.
And you went up to that captain because when you arrive on a scene like this, explain for the jurors, it's not a free-for-all, right? You don't just decide what you're going to do. You have to get a plan, correct?
There was no shots going on at the time, so we had time to develop a plan of action. If there's shots, you go in.
Understand, if you don't hear shots and or you don't know where the shots are coming from and you're covering an area that might be hundreds and hundreds of yards long in one direction, another direction, another direction, another direction, you try to formulate a plan and get more real-time intelligence, correct?
You can try to formulate a plan. Yes, we formulate a plan, we go in.
Right. Now, you knew, because those officers made it clear to you, by pointing at that building, you knew the 1200 building was the place to go, correct?
That's correct.
All right. No one ever said, hey, it could be the 1300 building as well, correct?
No one said that.
Did anyone ever tell you it could be the football field, that shots were fired by the football field?
Nobody said that.
Now, if they did, you would have taken that seriously and thought maybe there might be shooter or shooters located over there too, correct?
If somebody said there may be more shooters, then we take it seriously.
All right. Did you know whether you were just dealing with one shooter or multiple shooters?
Had no idea at the time.
Okay, so then you're trained as law enforcement officers to consider that there might be multiple shooters anywhere on campus, correct?
There could have been, but they only heard it in one building.
Yeah, the ones who directed you and gave you that intelligence, correct?
Yes.
All right. And those people made it very clear that there was danger if you were to go into the building, correct?
They didn't make it clear there was danger. We were going in the building.
I understand that. Now, you see my client for the first time, you say he's standing on a sidewalk, correct?
Yes.
Did you know at all in real time what his experience was up to that point?
I have no idea what he was doing.
You didn't know what BSO had indicated to him on his radio, correct?
I did not know.
You didn't know what type of thoughts he had concerning where the shots might be located, correct?
Correct.
And you did see him huffing and puffing, correct?
Yes.
And you did see him with genuine emotion saying, oh my God, correct?
The genuine emotion, counsel's testifying.
Well, no, that's overruled. Go ahead, sir. You can answer that question.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Did you see him with genuine emotion as he was saying, oh my God, I can't believe this, oh my God?
Well, he was looking down, so he was huffing, puffing, oh my God.
And that was around the time that a body of a female was brought out of that building, isn't that correct?
I don't remember if she was there first and we got her out and then he was there. I don't remember the exact timeline. But if you do this job long enough, you see plenty of bodies and it's time to act, not time to not act.
You're not robots, though. You're human, correct?
We are human.
And you're subject to stress, correct?
That's correct.
And when you see a child coming out of a building, you can't train the response away, correct?
You can train to put your emotions aside and handle stuff. And that's what we do.
Are you suggesting that every one of your officers is successfully able to completely devoid themselves of emotion?
I don't know what every officer can do.
Okay. My client never said to you, I know where the shooter or shooters are located, correct?
I don't remember him saying that.
Right. Nor did he ever tell you that I know that there's children and or adults being killed in the 1200 building, correct? He never said anything like that, correct?
If they're shooting in that building, you're assuming children are being killed.
I understand, sir. Back to my question. Did he at any point tell you that he knew that anyone was being killed during the shooting?
He did not tell me.
Okay. And when you did ask him what's going on, his response to you was, I don't know, correct?
That was his response.
Now, you didn't think in real time, well, here's a guy who knows, but he's faking it.
Objection.
Yeah, that's the state. Go ahead, sir. Ask another question.
Now, you did see my client on the radio, did you not?
I don't remember if I saw him. I think he said something on the radio at some time.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a school radio or a police radio, because SROs carry both.
But you do have now an independent recollection of my client actually on the radio when you were present, correct?
I think he said he heard something on the radio. I don't know if he keyed up and was talking or if he heard it.
You didn't know who he was talking to, correct?
Correct.
You don't know which radio he was on at that moment, correct?
Correct.
And just so we're clear, you didn't look through the window and see the bodies. You opened up the door. That was your testimony, correct?
If you look through the windows, you would see bodies.
Okay.
But I opened the door.
Your testimony was you didn't look in the window. You opened up the door and saw bodies, correct?
I opened the door and saw bodies.
You don't know how close my client got to the actual slits on those doors, correct?
I don't know how close he was.
Okay. You never saw him looking in through any of the slits of the windows on the doors, correct?
I wish he were that close.
Back to my question. You never saw him, correct?
Oh, I did not see him.
Now, you were talking with officers without your radios because they were standing right near you, correct?
Yes.
My client, for example, couldn't have been speaking to officers, like the ones that you saw that were not going into the 1200 building by the fence, correct? That was too far, correct?
When I was asking him about what rooms they were in, or?
In general, unless the officers are right in front of you.
Yeah, I don't think they would have heard. The ones at the gate, I don't think would have heard him.
You would need your radio, for example, to communicate with those people, correct?
Yes.
You need your radios to communicate with dispatch, correct?
Yes.
Because dispatch is not on the scene, correct?
Correct.
And if someone, let's say from Carl Springs, gives real-time intelligence to VSO, my client would need a radio to be able to hear that information, correct?
No, that's overruled, sir. I don't want you to guess, but if you have personal knowledge, you can answer the question.
Could you repeat it for me, please?
Yeah, the way it works is you need a radio to be able to speak with dispatch
Yes.
and hear what they're saying in case real-time intelligence comes in to dispatch, correct?
On the radio, yes.
Yes. You also need a radio to hear what other officers are saying, assuming they're not right in the immediate presence of you, correct?
Yes.
You didn't run into that 1200 building before you first spoke to a captain on scene, correct?
That's correct.
And you asked that captain, hey, where do you need me, correct?
What can I do? Where do you need me?
Right. Because there's a chain of command on a scene.
There was no chain of command on that scene.
There's supposed to be some type of leader.
Hold on. I didn't hear the question. Go ahead, Mr. Alvarez, ask your question.
At a scene, there's somebody who's the highest ranking person that's supposed to give out orders, correct?
Not at that type of scene. The first person there has the best intelligence. So that person will then say, this is what I have, and then you formulate it. As long as shots aren't being fired, at that time you have time to formulate a plan. If shots are being fired, you go in as a contact team.
Even you were concerned about running in because of potential friendly fire, correct?
After there was no longer gunshots, and we didn't hear anything, after we had our positions where we were, and when as officers are searching the floors, you don't want to run in if they're not expecting you to be on that floor.
Explain that to the jurors. Why are you concerned about friendly fire if you were to run into a building? You're all cops, right? They're not going to harm you, are they?
Well, they're searching for a suspect at the time. They're not sure what he's wearing, what he's doing. Okay, so if they already said, we know this team is going to the third floor, that team would methodically search from one end to another. So if I went up a different stairwell and they're not expecting me, there could be friendly fire.
And all the time that you're on the scene, none of you knows that the shooter is long gone by then, correct?
We do not know that.
Okay. So you're operating with the mens rea, the thought process, that that shooter could still be there on campus somewhere, correct?
And calls for a legal conclusion.
No, it's overruled as to vote. Go ahead, sir, you can answer that.
Could you repeat it, sir?
So you're operating under the state of mind that the shooter or shooters are still potentially right there on scene, correct?
We're not sure if they're not on scene, yes.
And so you still have to take the proper precautions, correct? Or else you could be killed, correct?
You take the proper precautions when there's no more gunfire going on.
And at no point did you ever go over to my client and ask him from beginning to end, hey, what's happened? What was your real-time intelligence? What did you know? You never did that, did you?
I wasn't going to walk away from the scene when I have an assignment to protect the hallway and protect the stairwell.
To this day, you have never spoken with my client about what he went through.
I have never spoken to your client.
No, it's overruled. You already answered the question. Go ahead, sir, ask your next question.
Nothing further there.
All right, based on that, and you redirect.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Why did the possibility of the windows being shot out not deter you?
Just because windows are shot out doesn't mean somebody's shooting at you.
What do you mean?
Well, I can shoot that window down from the end of the hallway. It doesn't mean I'm taking a position to shoot down at somebody.
You had no idea if there was one shooter or two shooters. Why did that not deter you?
Because if there's a shooter going on, your job is to go in there and try to save lives. Neutralize the threat.
Is the smell of smoke real-time intelligence?
Yes,
Is blood on the ground real-time intelligence?
I would say yes.
Are bodies on the ground real-time intelligence?
Yes.
Were all of those things clearly observable to you the moment you opened the doors to the east side of the 1200 building?
Yes, they were all right there.
And nothing else?
Based on that, we recross.
Yeah. There was no smoke outside of the 1200 building, correct?
When I opened the doors, I could see smoke inside the building.
I understand. Prior to you opening up the door, there's no smoke billowing outside of the 1200 building.
I did not see it.
Nor is there any blood outside of the 1200 building.
I didn't see it.
And nor are there any bodies outside of the 1200 building, correct?
I didn't see it,
State as witness excused.
I guess so.
So you may step down.
Thank you.
While he's doing that, put aside votes, please. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, just because of scheduling issues, we're going to press pause on the trial at this point for today. I'm going to get you out of here a little bit early today. I want to repeat a couple things. Again, no promises, but it appears the state's going to rest their case tomorrow, what we discussed earlier. So we're substantially ahead of that original schedule that I gave you. Okay, so that's number one. And then we would move right into the defense presentation. I do need to speak to juror number 6 one more time. But besides that, ladies and gentlemen, as to all of you, same admonition as always, please don't discuss the facts of the case, the evidence, the witnesses, or the testimony amongst yourselves or anyone else. I'm going to remind you to please not do any research on this case, directly or indirectly, from any source whatsoever, nothing on social media, the internet. Please don't watch the news. Please don't read the newspaper. Okay, I'm going to ask you to be back at the jury room tomorrow, Wednesday, June 21st at 9:15 a.m. tomorrow, Wednesday, June 21st. If you'll leave the notepads in your chairs, they'll be waiting for you when you come back. Juror number 6, if you can just remain one moment, I will be right with you. Thank you. Okay, we're outside the presence of the rest of the jury. Everyone can be seated. So did you have a chance to read the email, call, or think about what I talked to you about earlier? Okay. And at this point, you tell me, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to stay with us at this point? You do want to stay. Okay, so you're going to work that out with your employer based on the information that I gave you. Okay. State, is there any questions that you would like me to ask?
No.
Defense, is there any questions that you would like me to ask?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, have a good night. I'll see you at 9:15 tomorrow morning. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're outside the presence of the entire jury. Everyone can be seated. So, I'll talk to you about scheduling about Thursday and Friday, but State, anything else you need me to address before we recess the trial for the day?
No.
Defense, anything else you need me to address?
No.
So I have a short docket tomorrow, which is why we're doing the 9:15. I have likewise a short docket on Friday. This Thursday is my once a month calendar call. I have a large docket Thursday. I think we originally told the jurors maybe 10:30 a.m. or 11 a.m. That might have been on the schedule. It's going to take some time. And again, there's no time limits. I'm not limiting either side. We're so far ahead of the schedule, but there's a couple ways to do it. I guess I'll tell you the options, and then I'll talk to you about it some more tomorrow. But choice one is I could have the jurors come back, say, at 11 o'clock Thursday, and we could work for an hour and a half, have the normal lunch break, and then the balance of the day if we're in the defense case. Choice number two would be to have the jurors eat on their own and maybe have them return at 12:15 or 12:30, period. And then we just go through so you can have 4 or 5 uninterrupted hours for your presentation. Or choice three would be just to have them come back at the normal time after the normal lunch break, would be 1:30, I guess, and then work half the day Thursday afternoon. I just don't want the jury to have to wait for me. I don't want you all to have to wait for me. I think I have about 60 matters that I have to handle Thursday morning in my regular division, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'll leave you with that, and then you all can discuss it amongst yourselves, how you want to proceed, and then we'll tell the jurors tomorrow. State, anything else you need me to address before we recess the trial for today?
No, Your Honor.
Defense, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, so the trial will be in recess until tomorrow, which is Wednesday, June 21st at, we'll call it 9:30 a.m. Division FX will be in recess until tomorrow, Wednesday, June 21st at 8:45 a.m. I hope you all have a good rest of your afternoon. All right, Madam Court Reporter, that is it.
That wraps up segment number 4 in today's coverage of the trial of Scot Peterson, the Parkland School resource officer. Keep it here and press subscribe so you don't miss any of our continuing coverage on this case as it continues to unfold. I'm Tony Brueski. Stay with us.
This has been a special report from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.